Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thriving Filmmaker Show. Today we're joined by Rebecca Day. Rebecca, where are you today? You're in England, correct?
I am. I'm in the Lake District in England.
The Lake District in England. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Everyone who's on, make sure to let us know where in the world you're joining us from. I'm in Miami, Florida. Rebecca's in England. We're really just covering the globe today. And trying to. I see someone in New York City. Thanks for joining us. Today, you're going to learn a few things. One is how to manage the complexities of offering empathy while trying to make an impactful film. Also, how to create a routine for your own self-care and mental health as a filmmaker. And 2 tips on creating a mindset of financial abundance rather than scarcity. So I would love to welcome today Rebecca Day. She's a freelance producer and qualified psychotherapist. She began her producing career with the Scottish Documentary Institute in 2008, where she produced her first short documentary, Peter in Radioland, nominated for 7 awards, including a European Academy Award, developed several features, and worked on innovative outreach and audience engagement campaigns for the Scottish Documentary Institute, most notably the successful campaign around the award-winning documentary, I Am Breathing, and 7 Songs for a Long Life. She's also a qualified person-centered psychotherapist and a member of the British Association of Counseling and Psychotherapy. She launched Film in Mind in September 2018 to offer consultancies, workshops, and therapeutic support to filmmakers working in difficult situations and with vulnerable people. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rebecca, on the Thriving Filmmaker Show. See, we have some folks, Columbia, South Carolina. Welcome, Lauren, and some other folks who are joining. So at any time, feel free to type into the chat. Let us know what you're working on, what films you're excited about right now. There's also a poll. Make sure to take the poll. We want to know what provisions for self-care and support you'd like to see in the industry. And if you want to post a question, definitely do that. And we're going to have a Q&A at the end where we're going to take the questions with the most votes. So post a question or vote up on your favorites. So with that, let's get started. So Rebecca, tell us a little bit about how you went from production to psychotherapy.
Thanks, Annie. Hi, everyone. So I'll just start by, it's a bit of an echo, sorry, it's slightly distracting. I'm just going to start by introducing myself, and I wonder if I can fix this, Annie. My voice is echoing back to me.
I don't hear that. Let us know in the chat if you are not hearing. Okay. It sounds good on my end. No echo. Thanks, Lauren. No echo.
Okay, we'll go with it.
But you can... Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. But you can try to fix it on your end and see if that works.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think I'd probably have to stop and start again, so we'll just go. Okay. I've been working as a producer in the industry for the last 10 years, totally in documentary, not in fiction. Oh, sorry, Annie, this is really distracting.
Okay.
Can I leave the chat and join again?
Yes, you can.
How do I do that?
I'll do that and you'll get a prompt from me.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to bring Rebecca back on so that we don't have any audio issues. So, this is why we have live webinars. It's like live TV. It happens. There we go.
Okay.
How's that, Rebecca?
It's the same. I'm going to try. So basically my voice is repeating itself as I speak, but bear with me. Yes, so I've been working in the industry for the last 10 years as a documentary producer. I can't speak.
When you take out your headphones and speak, and then when I speak, put it back in. Okay, put them back in.
Okay.
All right, we're just going to power through. We can do this, Rebecca.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, it's just hearing my voice after I speak is quite odd. Sorry, everyone.
Or just take them out of your own ears, not from the computer when you speak.
But then I can't hear you.
And put them back in when you're done speaking into your own ear.
Okay, that will help. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca.
Sorry about that, everyone. Just technical issues. So I've been a documentary producer for the last 10 years and working mostly in Scotland, recently moved to England. And I've worked on a wide variety of subjects, films with different subject matters as both a producer and as an audience engagement manager. And I realised that there were many parts of filmmaking that I was loving. There were many parts that I was really struggling with. Sustainability was a really key issue, which I'm sure many of you feel as well. I was really drawn to the work that I was doing, connecting with people and running campaigns around films and really finding out these sort of new ways of giving documentary a life, past the sort of cinema release of it and being aired on TV. So that was the work within communities that was really, really helping to bring people together. When I went freelance a couple of years ago, I'd sort of come to the conclusion that I wouldn't be able to make a living as solely as a documentary producer. And I was looking around for something else to do that would sustain me and allow me to continue making films. And one of the things that I was really drawn to was the idea of training to be a counsellor. And part of that decision was informed through a lot of conversations that I'd had with peers, with my fellow filmmakers in the industry about the difficulties of making film and how hard it was to have those conversations around self-care, around struggling with relationships in the industry, and with making a living and trying to hold together your personal life while being completely committed and passionate to your filmmaking career. So in my mind, I was going to be a psychotherapist, part-time, and a film producer part-time. I didn't think they'd merge in quite the way that they have. So that was really, it's been a really fantastic experience for me to realize that all of the reasons that made me want to be a documentary producer are exactly the same reasons that made me want to be a psychotherapist. I want to be around people and to hear their experiences and to work with those experiences and to figure out a way that that we can find human growth, I suppose, is the easiest way to put it. And I think documentary does that, and I think therapy does that beautifully. One of the main things that I realized during my training was that I was receiving all of this support and advice and structure on how to take care of myself as a therapist. So, lots of different things around peer support, around supervision. So I have to have supervision once a month as a therapist to help me work through some of the more difficult clients that I see or things that I hear. And we talked constantly about issues around ethics and around contracting with our clients, and the list is endless. And I started thinking this sort of stuff should really exist for filmmakers as well, because I think the parallels that can be drawn between the two things are very similar. And I wanted to start that conversation and to see where we could go with that, and to see what provision could be provided for the film industry in terms of creating a support system that allowed us to speak more openly about the more vulnerable aspects of filmmaking. I spoke, shall I continue, Annie, and just let everyone know? I'm just going to let everyone know about my attending the Getting Real conference that the International Documentary Association ran in LA in September. So I ran a panel and a workshop there, and I think it was probably the first time that this had been discussed, or the idea of mental health in the film industry had been discussed publicly. And the response was amazing. And I think I sort of made a note here of this key kind of themes that were emerging from my conversations with people during that time, or themes, problems, things that we need to things that we would like to address. Career sustainability was undoubtedly at the top of the list. It's an incredible challenge for people in how to earn a living while creating the projects that we love and that are artistic and can support us emotionally and financially. Relationships amongst the filmmaking team was a really big thing, and how difficult those relationships can sometimes be to manage, and how isolated we can feel as filmmakers if we don't have those relationships around us. Just the very concept of self-care as an independent filmmaker was under discussed, and it was really nice to be able to discuss that for the first time in a room full of 300 filmmakers, and to hear what other people were doing to help themselves, and for other people to recognise that they weren't doing anything. Trauma came up quite a lot. There were a lot of people asking questions about how to deal with trauma, whether it's first-hand trauma or second-hand trauma, or what that even means. And of course, working with vulnerable contributors. So the people that you're filming with who may have mental health issues of their own, or are in extremely vulnerable situations, and we're not always best prepared to deal with that. And what happens when you finish filming and you go into the edit suite, and there were lots of concerns being raised around that. So I think those are the main things that came out.
Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. And could we dig a little bit deeper into that, actually? First, the point about self-care. So what advice would you suggest for self-care and mental health for filmmakers? Let's start with that, and then let's move to the care of participants and when you do get in the edit suite.
Okay. I think it's a really personal choice. So one person's idea of self-care is going to be very different to another. I think the most important thing is to recognise that we all need it in one form or another. When we're working the hours that we do, when we're often working alone, when we're working in the situations that we find ourselves in, and often without support and separated from our families, you need to take time out to not only get you through the current project that you're working in, but also to recover from that before you move on to the next. For me, one of the first things I remember doing at the Scottish Documentary Institute was committing myself to a yoga course and leaving on that day at the same time every week, unless there was something completely urgent or I had to be away. If I would leave early for that yoga class. And it was the first step in recognizing that if you make the space for a little bit of time for yourself, then it actually can exist. So, I think self-care can come in many forms, whether it is actually seeking out the help of a therapist on a film set or during the whole filmmaking process, or it's taking up meditation or yoga, or creating a group of fellow filmmakers around you where you maybe meet up once a month and just discuss, just let loose and talk about, all of the things that you're experiencing, whatever it looks like for you, hill walking, or it has to be the right thing for you. It can't be prescribed. It has to be something that fits you.
So to summarize, really prioritize and make space for your self-care, and identify what it is that you need that will make you feel like you have that space. So Rebecca shared her example of a yoga class. I also have a fitness class that I go to and prioritize. If it's hiking, if it's meeting with a group of filmmakers once a month, if it's even within this thriving filmmaker community, do that, but prioritize it as part of your own creative process, because really it is a part of the creative process to surrender. I always think of creation as the process of surrendering to your emotions so that you can be true to them and share them and process them and express them through your film and art. So if you're not caring for yourself and your emotions and your well-being, your art will suffer too. So make sure to do that. And the poll below the video, make sure to take that poll. We want to know what would be most helpful to you. I see some folks have done that. Also submit questions. We're going to, and vote up questions. The ones with the most votes we'll take at the end, and share where you are joining us from. I see Colorado, Budapest, Sarah, Susan, thank you for joining us. I see other folks are also attending live. Let us know where in the world you are. We'd love to hear where you're at. Even just the act of being here live with us, count that as part of your own self-care, taking the time to process that and think about it. Also, feel free to share your what you're working on in the chat. What films you're working on? Is it a short? Is it a feature? We're here to engage and to help you. So Sarah, Rebecca, share with us also the second point that you made. The first was about self-care, and the second was about making an impactful film while also offering empathy. But really, how do you create that kind of boundary between bringing on the emotions and the burden of storytelling with the, trying to almost act as therapists? I see filmmakers say that a lot. I know that's a very dicey, sensitive thing to say, especially if you're not certified and licensed like yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really important question, and it's something that we definitely need to spend more time discussing. So the idea of a filmmaker acting as a therapist is a really valid one. We enter people's lives and we encourage them to open themselves up to us and to share their lives with us, and in a way that is very different to how it's experienced in the therapy room. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to share that publicly. And so issues of confidentiality are, I'm not going to use the word broken because it's a completely different format, but they're in question. We can't be confidential with the people that we're filming with, but we can respect the boundaries that we should be placing around the people that we film with, especially if they're in a vulnerable situation. And I think I've sort of been thinking a lot around what types of discussions are we having with people when we first embark on the filmmaking process. So when I first start seeing a client as a therapist, I'll contract with them. And that contract can either be verbal or it can be written down. It's not a legally binding contract, but it does set out the boundaries of the therapy and how that's going to work. And then I know that a lot of therapists come back to that contract every so often and review it and see how it's working and see if there's any changes that need to be made and remind themselves of what they're working on in that therapeutic process. And I think something similar to that would work really well with filmmaking. So we go in the development stages and we explain to them that we're going to be making a film and what's that going to look like and how do they want to be involved. And then the relationship deepens, so things have changed again. So we go back to that, whether we use the word contract or discussion, and we review it and we see how they're feeling about the process. And now that we've moved into production, and it might be more intensive. And then again, as we're nearing the edit stage, you almost need to start thinking about how you end that process with the person that you're filming with, because even though as a filmmaker you still feel very, very immersed in their lives, you won't be for them anymore. You're going to step away and you're going to leave them feeling a whole mix of things that we can't predict, because you've been so involved in their life and they don't know what the final product is going to be yet. They don't know what that film is going to look like, and they don't know where you've gone. So preparing somebody for that is a really, really important thing as well. And how we have those conversations is obviously going to differ per person, but it's something that I think we need to come back to time and time again, to make sure that people feel safe and they feel that their voice is being heard, and they understand what it means to be involved in this film. Because obviously when the film goes to be released, they'll then be involved in the process again. And you want that to be as easy and as comfortable for them as possible.
Yeah. No, those are all great points. Making sure that they feel safe. I like the revisiting the conversation with each new phase and milestone because it means something different. It means something different when you're actually interviewing someone with a camera in their face about something very, very vulnerable and personal oftentimes, or even not, even just someone who's sharing information, facts, and historical context. They're still going through that process versus the phase at which they see other people watching them on screen and it's in distribution. So that's absolutely critical to their self-care and being conscious of that.
Exactly.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit to financial abundance and the mindset around that. I'm going to just share 2 tips to creating a mindset of financial abundance rather than scarcity. I'm going to share my screen quickly. And in the meantime, if you have questions, if you want to share your project, do that in the chat. We'd love to hear what you're working on and what you have questions about. So 2 quick tips. One is understanding how rich you already are. And the second is creating a magical things folder. So by the first one, what I mean is putting in context your income right now. So I'm in the US, Rebecca's in England. So this is a US statistic that I'm using, but it applies to anywhere. So the median household income in the US is 59,000 US dollars in 2016. So that's not individual income, that's household income, an entire household. Half of the households in the US make more than that, half make less than that. If you make that in a year by income, you would be in the top 0.2% of richest people in the world by income. And if you make even less than half of that, $24,000 US, you would be in the top 2.24% richest people in the world by income. Why do I share that? Why is that, I think, a point of self-care? It puts into perspective your own financial situation, and we often are in this mindset of scarcity. Many of the students I work with are in that mindset, and I want you to ground yourself in truly the privilege that it is to create a film about someone's life and the flexibility and choice you have in that. You're doing this work out of joy because you love it and because you truly have the ability to do so. So ground yourself in gaining some perspective of your financial situation rather than feeling like you're alone and in a point of scarcity. So here's one example about expressing that joy. So this is an example from Ava DuVernay. She was on the set of the film Selma, and she posted a kind of a flashback reflection. On July 2nd, 2014, on this day 4 years ago, we had no clue how it would be perceived, if folks would like it. We just loved it every day and tried our very best in every single moment. That's all you can do with whatever you set your mind to. Love it, be in love with it, and then give it your best. That's the making of a good life. The rest is what it is, because nothing will ever be as good as the experience of making it if you make the experience golden. So just focus and enjoy, nothing better. So really, I bring this up as a point of your own reflection, encouraging you to reflect on why you do this work and where your joy comes from. Where is that joy? Are you reflecting on it? You are, again, doing this by choice. What brings you joy in the process? For Ava DuVernay, it's the making of the film. For me as an impact producer, it's the distribution of the film. So I encourage you to not just think of your sustainability and thriving as financial, but also as creative. So I think of thriving as the creative and financial alignment of your goals and needs. And thriving is a condition beyond survival, implying growth and positive development. You're not just trying to survive, you're trying to thrive and grow. One of the things that I do that's very practical is creating a folder in my inbox called Magical Things. And whenever something happens or whenever I get an email that symbolizes that joy and why I love doing this work, I file it in magical things. And that helps me shift my mindset as to focus on joy and gratitude and abundance in my work. So those are my 2 tips for you. 1, get some perspective. And you can go to globalrichlist.com to input your own numbers and see where you are in terms of the world. And another statistic that kind of puts things in perspective is that only 55% of the global population has internet. Just with that, just the fact that you are here is a point of abundance. So think about that as well. And the second is create a magical things folder in your email inbox to help you focus on that, again, abundance and joy that you have from creating. So make sure to take the poll. Again, we have some folks who have taken the poll. Write any questions that you have in either the chat or submit them below. And share what you're working on in the chat as well. What film you're working on, share a link. We have some more folks join from Denver and Brooklyn. Welcome. So Rebecca, going back to your work, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone has any questions about it. I think a lot of people are unsure about exactly what it means and what it is. So I've created a company called Film in Mind, and it's in its infancy stages at the moment. And I'm actually going to take a short break because I'm about to become a mum next month. So I'll be coming back from a 6 months off with my baby to start proper research into this. And that will involve reaching out to as many people in the film industry as possible to kind of get a sense of their experiences of working in the industry, of developing their careers, the struggles, the things that they would like to see in place for that additional support, and then for me to be able to shape support around the findings of the research. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I mean, this doesn't, I'm still producing documentaries, and I really want to continue to do that, but I can't put this down. I'm like a dog with a bone. It feels really important, and the conversations that I've had so far, the main response is thank you for having this conversation. So I'm kind of going with that, and I just want to keep it going, and I want to encourage people to not feel that they can't voice it when things are difficult, and to not feel isolated in that as well. So that's all I want to
right. No, it's great work, and I think it's just taken off because we need to have this conversation in the industry. Lauren just shared from South Carolina a bit about her film, but she also said, and thank you for sharing your work, Lauren. You also said you touched a nerve with me when you mentioned the emotional attachment you make with your interview subjects and the toll it can take on you. Is there anything that you want to add, Rebecca? I'm sure you get that a lot from folks.
Yeah. A lot of conversations I've had have been around how involved we should be in people's lives, and I think again, it's really difficult to see where the line is between a professional involvement and a personal involvement, and we often become not just filmmakers in someone's life or therapists, but friends, sometimes honorary family members, and it's really difficult to then separate yourself from that when the film is finished. So I think that goes back to what I was saying about constantly having these conversations about what it means to be part of this process, and just trying to be as transparent as possible with the person you're filming with. And forming an emotional attachment is inevitable, and it's a beautiful thing, and they can lead to lifelong friendships. But if you plan to have a career where you're making a film a year or several, films over the course of it, you need to just make sure that you are leaving some space for yourself in that as well, and just just kind of recognizing the toll that can take when you're supporting people for a really long time. The period of filming can be years. The period of releasing the film can be even longer. So I don't know if that answers the question at all. Well, if there was a question attached to that. But.
Yeah, no, thanks for addressing that. And if there's anyone who has something else to say, I see we have a question that's been submitted and the polls. Great, Lauren, thanks. She said that was great. So appreciates your feedback, Rebecca. Let's see what people have put in the poll and questions that have been asked. So we asked all of you in the poll, what provisions for self-care and support would you like to see in the industry? And your options were retreats, project-specific consulting, one-on-one counseling, group film team consulting, or training courses. And the majority of you, 40%, said project-specific consulting and by advising on elements of production. So that would be very interesting, I think. It's not too late to take the poll, so if you haven't, you can jump in.
I wonder if anybody wants to type up what they mean by advising on elements of production.
Yeah, share that with us too. What project-specific consulting would you be most interested in, or would you find most helpful? This is what Rebecca is developing, so let her know. We have one question submitted, so let's go there. The question came from Susan, who is in Budapest. What kind of documentaries do you really want to produce? Do you have a specific theme or group which you're especially interested in now?
No is the short answer. I'm afraid I don't. It's been really varied. I think the two films that really led me quite solidly into this work were actually both based around palliative care. So I Am Breathing and Seven Songs for a Long Life had a huge impact on me. I worked on the outreach of both of those films, so the audience engagement side of things, and we were working with communities that were coming to terms with grief, with death and dying, and just finding ways of having really open, healthy, positive conversations about that through the use of film was really empowering. And when those films were over, I felt like a little something was missing. And I guess that's what I was looking for when I went towards the psychotherapy work. But my most recent documentary was a philosophical documentary about our human relationship with nature. I've worked on sports documentaries as well. I'm doing a film at the moment about men's mental health and about how difficult men can find it to be intimate with the people closest to them. I'm doing another short film about farming in the Lake District. So it's really varied. I think the key thing for me is that the subject matter is something that I'm passionate about, as in it fits with my politics and my sort of personal approach to life, but also that the people we're filming with are compelling and they have something to say, but that they're going to get being part of the film. That's incredibly important to me. It's not about finding characters finding people to fit a story. It's about working with people that really have something profound to say, and they're going to benefit from being able to say that.
That's great. I love that approach of really caring and thinking about your role as a filmmaker. You're not extracting from them, but you're being a mediator. It is a medium. So that's wonderful. We have lots of questions coming in. Okay, make sure to vote up on questions, as these are what we're going to get to. So we'll get to as many as we can right now. The next question submitted is from Sarah in Denver. Thank you, Sarah. The question is, I've had a time when I went to a film scene with someone in my film, and we're having a mental health crisis. She was actively trying to get herself into therapy and had been going to therapy. But what would you suggest in times like these? It seems like they're asking that they went to a film screening with someone in the film and they were having a mental health crisis. Sarah, let us know in the chat if that is not what you meant. What would you suggest?
Okay, so if I'm answering a question about about somebody bringing stuff up in a Q&A that's not directly related to the film, but is more related to a crisis that they might be having, I think that happens.
Yes.
It's a really common thing to happen in Q&As, and I think you probably can prepare yourself for that by recognizing what sort of stuff your film screening is going to bring up for people, because it's always a mix of industry people coming to documentary screenings and people that are coming specifically for that subject matter. So often we might provide a specialist in that area. So say with the palliative care films, we would have a representative from someone like Hospice UK who would be at the screening as well. So they can either speak on stage or they can be there to speak to people afterwards. But also identifying someone in your film team, if that's not an option, someone in your film team that is capable, socially capable, and willing and able and strong enough to be able to take that role on. Because I think having, as a director, it's really difficult to field all of that yourself, and having support there for screenings where that sort of stuff could happen is really important.
Yeah, no, I think that during Q&As, that's tremendously important, and something to do is prepare beforehand as well. What questions they might get asked, what questions are off limits as well, and preparing the host, whoever might be asking those questions, is really important. Sarah did submit a clarification. It seems like she went to film with her. We'll come back to that, Sarah. We'll wait for your clarification on that. And in the meantime, we'll go to the next question. So the next question is from Akila. I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly, in New York City. The question is, I'm producing a doc short about a young woman's transformative journey growing up through domestic and partnership violence and learning how to heal and advocate for herself. This past week, I had to stop shooting because her family wasn't happy with her being so vocal about her past. I spoke with her and she wants to continue filming, to continue to share her story, but I don't want to cause any harm to her or her family. How would you deal with this ethical dilemma?
That is an ethical dilemma. I think
definitely.
I guess the relationship that you have is between you and the contributor of the film, and I have a very strong belief in trusting that people know their own minds, and if you give them autonomy, then they will be truthful with you about what they can handle. If you're able to sit down with her and have a conversation about the consequences of continuing with the film that it may or may not have, we can never predict, but we can talk about potential consequences that being part of the film can have, not just for her, but also for her family. Then at least she has the choices and the options there in front of her. But ultimately, as long as she's not being pushed into filming, then it's her choice as an adult. But you can always offer to sit down with the family and talk through the process as well, if you feel comfortable doing that. But it's a big ask, it's you're putting yourself out there as well. But if it would help her, if it would benefit her, that's something that could be offered.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it sounds like if the participant wants to share her story, there could also be kind of what you mentioned before, Sarah, at different milestones, agreements. So filming the story and then watching it and then making a new decision. How do they feel about what they'll see? Because they don't know what they'll see. What are their fears about what they'll see? And how that can impact the participant in that family. So thank you for sharing that, Akila. She says she definitely plans to speak with her mom and possibly siblings who are impacted in the story to make sure they understand my intentions. Absolutely. And I would also encourage you, Akila, to listen to what they say, your intentions, but also ask them, what are your hopes for this film? Why would you want to participate? Are there ways that it can help others? Are there ways that you could be helped? How else can I bring another resource in to help you feel safe or being heard? And then dividing that line, saying this is a story that she can share, and you also have stories that can be acknowledged. Because it's one thing to come in with intentions, but also listening to their intentions, I think, is important as well.
Absolutely, and it makes people feel that they're being heard. And I think another possibility is also a lot of people don't understand what the film medium is. Cutting together 5 minutes of footage that you've already shot and just showing how sensitive that footage can go such a long way in creating trust with people, because they see things differently then, and it can create a lot of trust in the process. So that's also something that can be tried.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go to the next question. Before I do, I want to acknowledge Sarah. Thank you for the clarification. I'll put your clarification back in the running. So the next question is from Lauren, advising elements. What advice do you have for producing documentaries in areas where film is not prevalent? I'm working in South Carolina, where people hear the word producer and assume you're big Hollywood, when really I'm the opposite. But I have to work 2 times to prove they can trust me and that I'm a part of the community. Or I'll get questions like, so when is this going to be done? How do you explain that to folks who have no clue why docs take years? That is, I think that's yep. It's a common, I think,
it is, and
occurrence.
It's a really common occurrence, and I think the only answer I have for that, I mean, we can't come at that from a particularly therapeutic angle. That's really
right. That's more producing question, right?
The only thing I would probably say to that is just be transparent. As transparent as you're comfortable being, but I just find that honesty works the best, and it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say I don't know how long this process is going to be. It really depends on what happens. And no, I'm not earning any money from this. I'm doing it for these reasons. And obviously, you want to protect your film and you want to protect your presence there. So it's finding that delicate balance of being transparent and still having your place in that community. It's a difficult one. Yeah.
Yes, no, indeed. And I would also, I think, add to that, who really needs to know that? Are you trying to get access into the community? Is it the folks who are in front of the camera asking the question? Really be as transparent as you'd like with the folks who need to know that, and don't feel like you have to explain to everyone, sometimes like family or grandparents, like, how long are you working on this film? Like, what is this about? Set emotional boundaries around your work, and let your work, you need to protect your artistic space so that you can work most productively, and answer those questions to the people who are most impacted by those questions. Otherwise, don't feel like you need to explain yourself to someone who isn't part of your team or isn't part of your circle or isn't part of the film. That's okay too. And if you are making money, and that's one of the reasons, that's okay too. Don't feel like you have to apologize for the value of your work. You're getting grants or making income or selling revenue. That's part of what you're doing. That's okay. It's okay to make money from your craft. It's a good thing. It's valuable. So that can be part of that conversation as well. So moving on to the next question. We have a few minutes left and there are 2 more questions. Let's try to get to these. Susan, my project is about the healing impact of learning filmmaking. Oh, interesting. It's about a traveling film studio, which goes to vulnerable, isolated groups to teach them to make short docs about their lives. Do you somehow relate to this kind of work? Have you ever tried to heal someone from trauma through helping the person to make a film? Do you think it is possible?
Not in my capacity as a therapist, no. I haven't tried that, but I think that is probably what we do in our capacity as filmmakers. And I think a large part of that process is all the stuff that happens when the camera's not on as well. So yes, I do think it's possible for film to be cathartic and healing, and it's another space for people to find their voice and to be heard and to feel that they've contributed something. It can give people an incredible sense of agency where they might not otherwise have it. We just need to be careful that that's what we're doing. It's that difference between giving someone agency and potentially exploiting them. Thankfully, in this documentary world, I think we have that balance mostly handled very beautifully. It's something that's really important to us, but it's always something that we can discuss more. But it's really vital that we recognise that that is something that we're providing and that we need to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that. I think that it can be, and it absolutely is transformative to listen to and express a story, whether that's us helping someone do that as filmmakers or teaching someone. So we'll go to the final question. Sarah's clarification to her previous question is that she arrived to film. She was arriving with her camera and gear, and the participant told her that she was having a mental health crisis. So what advice would you give her in that situation? The subject was also, the participant was also actively trying to get herself into therapy and had been going to therapy, which she arrived for a film shoot.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer without knowing the full context. I'm not sure if you had your camera rolling at the time, or if she'd asked you not to film. I suppose if she was clearly in distress and she'd asked you not to film, then I would always say just don't get right and don't film. It's not worth it. And if you're worried about missing something, if she wants to talk about it later, she will do so with an emotional vulnerability that will be enough. But to keep a camera on somebody when they're in a distressed state, it's a really tricky one because it really limits your ability to offer empathy, true empathy at that point. But also important to recognise that you're there in your capacity as a filmmaker. So not as a therapist, essentially. So making that decision of when to withdraw or whether to even get involved in that scene in the first place is always a really tough call. But if in doubt, I would probably not film because their health is the most important thing. If you do film, then if you do decide to film and you capture something, then you must sit down with them afterwards and talk it through and, really look at that footage and ask if it's worth it and explain it to them and show it to them. And if there's elements of discomfort, then again, it's questionable about whether or not it should be used.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that your trust with that participant is on the line, and that's number one. Especially in such a vulnerable situation, and think about yourself in that moment. Like, what would you want for yourself? Would you want someone filming you? What is your relationship with that participant? Is it part of the story? Is it not? But I love the suggestion of sitting down with them, and kind of debriefing that afterwards, with or without the footage, really. So thank you, Sarah, for the clarification and asking that.
Yeah, seeing ourselves vulnerable on screen can sometimes actually be a really empowering thing. It's not necessarily a negative thing to have filmed it, but it's just how that person responds to it afterwards is really important. Sort of making a judgment call on that, and just to get the balance right, to make sure that it's happening for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Great. So let's wrap up. Those are all the questions. Thank you so much for everyone who engaged. Is there anything you want to add, Rebecca?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I guess just to add that if anybody wants to take part in my research next year, then they can contact me either through my Facebook page or my Film in Mind website. I won't be starting it until the summer, but I'd love to speak to as many filmmakers as possible. So filmmakers, cinematographers, editors, producers, directors, just to kind of get a sense of what's happening at the moment and shaping the next steps around that. So yeah, just feel free to get in touch. I may be slow in responding over the next few months, but I'll get back to you eventually.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And the links to Rebecca's website and Facebook are in the description. Thank you, everyone, for joining, for submitting questions, for really asking questions and providing scenarios and situations that I think we don't talk about enough. I love talking about this in the context of thriving, because this is part of thriving. Again, that creative and financial alignment so that you can do your work and surrender emotionally to it is part of your creativity, and as is your own self-care. So if you do not have a self-care practice, absolutely make time for that, and build trust with your participants so that they feel safe and that their voice is being heard, to echo Rebecca's points. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining us today and for squeezing us in before you go on leave. So appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the year and the next few months. I know they're going to be very exciting for you.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for having me. Have a wonderful Christmas, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.